All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Joe Douglas and the New York Jets already pulled off a pretty big move before the trade deadline, which is November 1st, I believe at 4 o'clock Eastern, acquiring James Robinson, right? We all got the shot in the heart, the unfortunate news that Breece Hall went down for the season and AVT went down for the season. I mean, if this team wasn't, injured enough with guys like Mekhi Becton and, George Fant, Max Mitchell, Zach Wilson, obviously missed the start of the season. This team has been hurt left and right going back years now. So I'm totally happy with the James Robinson acquisition. The Jets only gave up a conditional 6th round pick that could be bumped up to a 5th rounder. Total win, in my opinion, for the New York Jets. But in this one, I wanted to ask the question, should the New York Jets go out and trade for another player, right? Add another piece before the deadline. We look at the Jets right now, they're 5-2 with a massive stretch of games coming up. We got the Patriots, then the Bills, then I believe the bye week, and then the Patriots again. Massive. Right? It's absolutely massive. And if the Jets want to, continue to make that push, maybe for a wild card spot, at this point, the AFC East, who knows, it could be smart. It could be in Joe Douglas's best interest to buy low or try to acquire some awesome talent here before the deadline. So the two big names that a lot of Jets fans are talking about right now are Laramie Tunsil from the Houston Texans and Jack Conklin from the Cleveland Browns, both former first-round picks. In fact, drafted in the same class, interestingly enough. But I think targeting offensive line makes total sense for the Jets before the deadline. Again, we could go down the laundry list of injuries here. Mekhi Becton out for the year. AVT out for the year. Max Mitchell still on IR. Fant is still not in the lineup. Right now it's Dwayne Brown is out there, but he missed, the first chunk of the season because of an injury, and he's 37 years old. So this Jets team could easily benefit from adding another offensive lineman, whether it's a star piece, whether it's, for depth purposes. Also, we have to take into consideration how Zach Wilson has been performing with a good offensive line compared to a bad, or really when he's pressured. When he has time in the pocket, he's completing a ton of passes. I believe 75%. When he's being rushed and under pressure, his completion percentage is 16%. 16. His yards per attempt under pressure is 1.7. Zach Wilson is literally one of the worst quarterbacks in football when he's under pressure. Okay, so when you factor that in, also factoring in Breece Hall missing the season, beefing up that offensive line makes a lot of sense. Now, going back to Laramie Tunsil here, I love him, right? I absolutely love Tunsil. Very good player. He's produced for multiple teams, multiple coaching staffs. I love Laremy. I think he's one of the better left tackle or better tackles, period, in all of football. The only two things that concern me about a Laramie Tunsil trade. Number one, I'm not so sure that Houston's going to be moving him. And if they do, I think it's going to take a lot to get him off the books in Houston. That's a player that they value. They had an opportunity to trade him earlier on before the start of this season, and they didn't. They opted to hold on to him. Okay, so that's a little tricky there. If the asking price continues to climb, then it's just, I don't want to be in a situation where the Jets are trading away a massive package, or they're, possibly mortgaging the future to go land a Laramie Tunsil. Another thing with Tunsil that we have to take into consideration is the cap hit, the financial weight that the Jets would be enduring here. Okay, he's a $17.7 million cap hit this season, which isn't horrible, it is what it is. But next season, he's a $35.2 million cap hit for 2023 and an undrafted free agent in 2024. Yes, Tunsil's a great player, and I would love to have him, but $35 million is a ton of cash considering who's under contract next season. Max Mitchell, Mekhi Becton, AVT, and Dwayne Brown signed that 2-year deal. So the Jets will have options at the tackle position next year. George Fant will be a free agent, but I just think that's a lot. That's a big financial weight to put on your shoulders. I do think Laremy is worth it, but in the end, will Joe Douglas pull off a massive blockbuster like that and take on that financial weight? So next up is Browns tackle Jack Conklin, and this one's interesting, okay, because Conklin, has always been a guy that's produced back in Tennessee. He's actually a former 2-time All-Pro player, And instead of, being under this monstrosity of a contract like Laramie Tunsil, where it's just, so much money, $35 million next season, Conklin kind of has like an annoying contract where he has void years and everything like that. So it's going to be more so something that Joe Douglas is going to have to look into over the next couple of years. So Conklin's an $11 million cap hit this season. He's a free agent at the end of this season, but in 2023, he's owed $6 million in just a dead cap hit. And then in 2024, he's owed $3 million. So, little by little, it's not that much money, but, it absolutely sucks. To, if the plan is to not bring Conklin back, to use him as a half-year rental, it sucks. It's easy to say, oh, it's just $6 million now. Or, oh, it's just $3 million 2 years from now. But when that time comes around, it's just going to suck to look at that on the roster. I know it's a minimal amount of money, but those dollars add up over time. I think if the Jets want to add Conklin to the roster via trade, I think the positive, it wouldn't take a lot to go get him from Cleveland, considering he has been injured in his time with the Cleveland Browns, and also nobody wants to pay those void years. So if the Jets want to get him in the building, maybe a restructure could happen where the Jets could extend him another season and he could be, the guy, one of our starting tackles for 2023, and those void years maybe get lumped into that 1-year contract. I don't know how it would work out. I don't know what would be the best for Joe Douglas at that point in time, at the point of, restructure, but it's something interesting. And again, going back to Tunsil here, that's a lot of financial commitment along with giving up a ton to go get Laremy, and we're under the assumption that Houston is trying to move him. With Cleveland, I think it might be a little bit more realistic to go out and get Conklin because he's not such a marquee name like Tunsil. And again, it's not going to take, I actually talked to 2 Browns fans before doing this video. Both guys said that they would be happy with a 2024 draft pick. That's all they said. It didn't specify like 3rd round pick, 2nd round pick, 4th, 5th, just 2024 futures pick is fine. So I think it's realistic. I think it could get done. It's just the void years that, have to be taken into consideration. Now, one player I'm actually a pretty big fan of, I loved him back in college, is ANdre Dillard. And I feel like Dillard isn't really being talked about enough as a potential trade target for the Jets. I mean, man, when you want to talk about somebody who's going to be cheap, somebody who's going to be okay fighting for a roster spot, somebody that's not going to command a long-term commitment where you're paying, tens of millions of dollars to, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. But with that said, I believe Dillard could be brought back for, not that much money when it's all said and done. I love the upside. He spent a lot of time as a backup, so there's a lot of tread on the tires. He has been injured, which sucks. That is a negative, but I don't feel like it would cost a ton to go get him from Philadelphia. I think, again, maybe a futures pick, maybe a late round pick this season. Of course, the Eagles, they are doing their thing this season. They're undefeated. They want to have the depth. Right, again, Dillard's not asking, he's not owed $15 million, so it doesn't really cause Philadelphia any trouble for him to be on the roster. And in the event somebody goes down with an injury, he could step in and do great things. But from the Jets' perspective, I know he's not Laramie Tunsil, I know he's not Jack Conklin, but man, when I look at realistic, under the radar types of trades, I think ANdre Dillard to the Jets makes a ton of sense. A ton of sense. And there's been, I personally feel like this trade yes, there's rumors every trade deadline, but there's been so much smoke this season. With Chase Claypool, Mike Gesicki, the entire Panthers roster. We'll see what happens with guys like Brian Burns and Derek Brown. TJ Hawkinson is another guy I've seen his name being floated around a little bit. Even the Denver Broncos, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Bradley Chubb. And as much as I would want the Jets to go land a Bradley Chubb or a Brian Burns, I think the price tag would just be a little too high. Also factoring in the contracts that the Jets have already dished out on the D-line. Carl Lawson, he's a top 3 highest paid player on this Jets roster. 4th in the NFL in QB pressures. So you're not going to replace a guy like that. You just drafted Jermaine Johnson in the 1st round. John Franklin Myers is owed a ton. Quinnen Williams is going to be due up soon, and I would absolutely love for Quinnen to be back. So I think right now there's just so much money being delegated to the defensive line. I don't know if the Jets could necessarily afford to trade away stuff, right? Whether it be draft assets, a player, whatever, trade away things, valuable things to go get a player. And now it's like, okay, now we got to figure out some sort of extension, some long-term big money extension for one of these marquee pass rushers when we already have Johnson and we already have Lawson on the roster. So it should be interesting to see how it all plays out. Let me know your thoughts down below. I personally want the Jets to go out and tackle a target, but I do think this trade deadline period is still a win no matter what. You know, because James Robinson was added so early in the process and for hardly anything. I mean, a conditional 6th-round pick. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.